And good evening, everybody. Before we begin, I will ask everyone to please silence cell phones and other electronic devices and remind council that our procedure bylaw prescribes the use of that kind of technology during council meetings. I'm going to do the same thing as I talk to about it. It is 6:30 p.m. I'll call this Brighton Council meeting to order. Brighton Council's work takes place on the traditional Indigenous territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe, now of Alderville. We are thankful to be able to work and live on this land. We offer a land acknowledgement as a way to recognize, respect, and honor this territory, the treaties, the original occupants, their ancestors, and the historic connections they still have with these lands and waters. We are grateful for the opportunity that these lands and waters present to the people of Brighton and grateful to work in partnership with the Indigenous community on their stewardship and sustainability. Councillor Rowley was here and has gone home and is zooming in. So welcome, Councillor Rowley. I can see you on screen. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that Council approve the December 1st, 2025 Council agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Members of Council, have you any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof. I am declaring a pecuniary interest on item 10.2 of today's agenda with regard to any budget discussions that have occurred to date and may occur this evening regarding the grant request from Trinity St. Andrews United Church for the operation of the Hilton Cemetery. I am a member of Trinity St. Andrews United Church and the Church Council and will therefore not participate in any discussions that relate to that budgetary line item. Should we discuss the cemetery budgets in general, I will be turning the floor over to Councillor Wheeldon. Are there any declarations this evening? Sorry, we just did that. Are there any announcements this evening? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. The last couple of days, I've been into Toronto each day. Yesterday, I got to attend the Realtors Advocacy Day, which is put on by the Ontario Real Estate Association. I was on a panel of realtors who are also elected officials. And so that was a very encouraging day and got to talk a little bit about the things that I'm proud of in terms of what difference I've been able to make in my community and how great of a council we have. And when I described the land banking initiative, the entire room applauded. So good work to everybody involved in that. Today, I arrived here just moments ago from Vaughan, where I had attended a Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks event. The minister was there, as well as the new, I don't recall his title, but the new leader of the Conservation Authority Oversight Agency. It was an opportunity for us to provide some input into regulations that will come out moving forward about how conservation authorities will be redesigned as regional conservation authorities. And so I know that Rhonda Bateman was there, Sherry Hamilton was there, Deputy Mayor of Trent Hills was there, and so we had good coverage from our region. But in general, there was it was an interesting conversation. There was a lot of comments from people saying, of course we could, work together better. Of course we could get to standardization and certain things. None of these things require us to be amalgamated and change the structure of everything that we're doing. And so there was some tension there, but overall I think it was good. I'm glad that they're even asking, and was glad to contribute.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeldon. Any other announcements? I do have two. Yesterday, Tammy and I were pleased to attend the 75th anniversary of the Legion's Ladies Auxiliary, and I provided them with thanks for their service on behalf of council and the community. On Wednesday, I sat with planning staff from Brighton and Northumberland and our CAO and our partners at 8 Wing Trenton to discuss short-term and long-term needs for military housing and how they might fit into Brighton's housing RFP process and the county's workforce housing concepts. So there was lots to take away from that. And I know Director Walsh, I think, has already sent out a communique to the local developers about reaching eastward with regard to smaller units, because we've heard from our local development community that they're having trouble marketing and selling townhouse units, smaller units. And yet that's exactly what we heard from our friends at 8 Wing Trenton. That's what the folks coming into the base are looking for, especially the newer recruits and the younger military members. So there seemed to be a bit of a disconnect there, and we're endeavoring to forge that partnership between the local development community and maybe people who will want to buy those units. So we'll see where all that goes. This all came out of my sojourn into Ottawa with the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, the Parliament Hill Day, and conversations around housing and military housing with federal members, wanting to make our housing needs federally appropriate. So, and connecting them with possible military spending as that spending goes up. And we know that certainly that policy network is happening from a military point of view. So good conversations that will continue as we move forward. Any other announcements? We go into the adoption of the minutes. It's moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Butwell, that council adopt the following council minutes as presented. Regular meeting November 17th, 2025, special council meeting November 24th, 2025, and council planning meeting November 26th, 2025. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. We have no statutory public meeting this evening, which brings us to delegations and presentations. Council will hear 2 presentations this evening. Presenters have 15 minutes to provide council with their information. It is noted that language, content, and conduct must always remain respectful. Council will be provided with an opportunity to ask questions of clarification from the presentation representatives based on the information they have presented. Council is reminded that this is not an opportunity to engage in debate with the presenters nor advance a public policy position. Presenters are reminded that council does not make decisions during the presentation portion of this evening's meeting. Our first presentation comes from Rene Schmidt with regard to a men's shed. Mr. Schmidt. Before you start, Rene, we'll get you to turn the microphone on so that anyone zooming in or coming in by YouTube can hear what you have to say.
Wow. Join me, Chuck. He's all right. Chuck and I do a lot of things together. A picture is worth 1,000 words. And I think this video is a little longer, but I think the first 8 or 10 minutes ought to be just fine. This should explain really a lot of what I'd be interested in. Is it possible to dim the lights that are shining right above it? You can see it better. You can see it? Oh, okay, good. Yeah, please.
This is the Hackberry Men's Shed. This is the first shed in Ontario, and the men's shed has just been an absolutely wonderful program for men to get involved with in our community. Somewhere to go, something to do, and someone to talk to. 3 very magical ingredients to what the shed is all about. When men retire or they become rude or their children leave, or they move into another community, their sense of identity, their sense of belongingness. So men who fit that category are 65 plus. Take a look at that demographic. The suicide rate is amongst the highest of any gender and age group. There's a phrase called "sanyamal," which is translated in English. It's bored to death. If you're depressed, you're not going to enjoy a long, fruitful life. And it's not for nothing that the World Health Organization declared social isolation as a global epidemic, and Men Shed provides a really good solution to that. Hi. I'm the new guy in the group.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are we today?
Last morning I went for breakfast, just terrified. Didn't know what to expect. the guys are so friendly and welcoming. I felt that I could get involved with it.
The one thing about the men's shed is you come here and it's like you've been here forever.
The first time I came here, I was just so surprised at the amount of equipment, almost like a Pandora's box. One of the joys of getting a new member is that they come in with different skills. So we can learn things that we've never learned in our life.
This is where it goes in the fuselage. Like if there's a project like that which does bring people in. I saw this model by the UK club. I thought, well, no, we should have one of those. Some guy here in the shed took a drawing I did and created 18 of these. I think that's marvelous. Now we have an aeroplane.
The working times are in the evenings when I'm alone. When I come here to the shed, it's like I'm in a different world. It's a little bit of a refuge, if you like. That's really very, very important to me. When Pat passed away, I didn't have to come in and explain how I felt. They knew how I felt. They knew what I was going through because others in the shed have also lost spouses.
My spouse, when I was 21, she was 17. 59 years. That was my wife. She died in hospital. I was just completely shattered, and I really couldn't see any way of curing that depression until I heard about the men's shed. Coming to the men's shed, I felt like I had a bit of a future again. If Babs was looking down on me, she would be very pleased that I've found some happiness in life.
Hey, Shane.
I don't anticipate leaving the men's shed until I pass away. That's probably the way most of us feel about the men's shed.
A lot of men don't feel comfortable having real conversations. This place gives them that area where they're surrounded by people who do the exact same thing and makes you feel normal. People don't see the chair, they see me, and they see me as something positive to their day. The shop itself was great, and then just having other guys around just was kind of the icing on the cake.
First tried to start the men.
Like that kind of illustrates, I think, quite well what men's sheds are all about. I think it says it a whole lot better than I could describe it. As a teacher, I had four glorious years actually teaching industrial arts to kids and using machine tools and stuff like that. And I've noticed in that too, that's a skill that's often that's held. A lot of parents or grandparents of kids today had those skills at school, and the kids at school are no longer getting those programs. And these are dying. These are kind of lost arts, lost talents. Men's shed is and I have a sheet here. It's got basically my talking points on it, and I've given to the clerk, and you can have a copy of that as well. Brighton is a haven for a lot of people leaving the city, leaving Toronto, and they come here, they sell all their stuff, they downsize their house, and I think they leave a lot of things behind, not just their tools, not just their friends, but also their status and their abilities are no longer recognized or needed. And we know the statistics are high for men, older men that have self-destructive tendencies, sometimes suicide or drug abuse or other things like that. And that just seems to be an indirect thing that a men's shed can be a benefit toward helping that. There are long-term savings on mental health. If a town like Brighton was to adopt something like a men's shed, it's hard to quantify that, but there definitely is an advantage to those people that can participate. It's an outlet for creativity and new community projects. A lot of times people get together and start working on something. They can come up with ideas that can be quite remarkable. It also, a men's shed in Brighton would provide a pool of workers with particular and various expertise. You'd want to know how to do a particular skill, a particular thing for the good of the town. You could probably go to a men's shed, typical of the ones that are all through Canada by now, and find people that could do that particular thing that you're talking about. Men with those skills would teach and supervise others wanting to learn. I know how to use a wood lathe quite well, and I've spent a lot of time on it, and I'd be happy to show someone else, but I'm not very good with a router, so I need help with that so I don't cut my fingers off. So somebody else, and that's where this kind of thing could help. And it would be a sustainable and attractive lure for new residents coming to a town like Brighton to know that there is a men's shed there. So one of the reasons I really want to come to the Brighton Town Council is you folks know what's going on in terms of buildings, vacant buildings, available buildings. It would be, I think, a possible good use for vacant property that the municipality owns but does not want to sell yet. A men's shed could be set up. It could be done on a lease arrangement or something else where people would use it from year to year, but this town might own it and be able to use it or repurpose it later on. Another possible thing would be a possible purchase arrangement, a lease to own or rent to own for a building that the municipality has and would like to sell, something centrally located. There's a men's shed near Ottawa, one of the many ones that are there, and they have an arrangement with Lee Valley Tools, who provides them with free tools for them. And when I heard years ago that the fire hall was maybe going to be rebuilt or changed or repurposed or something else happening to it, it occurred to me at that time, I thought that'd be a perfect place to have both a men's shed and our Beacon Youth Center. We could maybe share the property, something else like that. It's just an idea to throw out there. People have asked about liability, and I talked to an insurance agent about that. And if you had a release and a liability form that people would sign and understand, it wouldn't be a big issue, probably insurance cost. Chuck and I have got around to a number of different groups, and it's always been a positive thing. Now, I went around to some very deep-pocketed people here in town, property developers, people that I know with lots of money, tried to get them interested in buying a place for us to do this. No, they weren't forthcoming with writing a big check. But it's always a possibility there that if there is a property somewhere here in the municipality that is available, that would be for a good use. I'd like our council, if you, with all due respect, that you'd consider the use of it for this.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Any questions of clarification from members of council? Thank you, sir. I know that we have correspondence in the agenda also
Sure.
to consider.
Okay.
This evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a motion moved. Councilor Rowley, you're allegedly the mover of this, but if you're not on camera, I may have to find someone else. I'm not sure if you're there. You're good?
I'm good.
Thank you.
I'm good.
Motion moved by Councilor Rowley, seconded by Councilor Boutwell, that council received the presentation from Rene Schmidt, Men's Shed, regarding request to the municipality of Brighton to consider repurposing of an unused larger building, garage, or other space to become a Brighton men's shed. Is there any discussion? Councilor Boutwell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to say, I think that's a fantastic idea. Yeah, fantastic idea. It's a portion of our population here in Brighton that doesn't see a lot of focus in on services specifically for a gentleman.
Yeah, speaking as an older man, I'm in that category. We've been blamed for a whole lot of things, but anyway, no, I totally, I think it's important. Thank you.
Well, and it's not just the older man too, as we can see. Any of y'all will do.
Yeah. I do see an easy connection between our Beacon Youth Center, as I say, unsupported, no longer supported shop programs the way we used to have them in schools, where a lot of money was put toward it. That a lot of that money and budget has cut back over the years. And I see a very great interchange between older men who have time in their hands and teenagers, boys, girls who are restless, don't know what to do with life, and are interested in trades. And they could get some hands-on experience, hands-on practice, and a lot of training. And there are people still with a trade certificate, with a red seal, who could start an apprenticeship for someone in this town.
You just what you said brought a question to mind. So you mentioned twice about the beacon and
Yes.
this. Is that kind of a plan to enmesh the two of them?
That's my high ideal. That would just be something that's a pipe dream for way in the future. But no, I think a men's shed just on its own would be the first step. And yeah, I mean, if it could be aligned with, if you had a bigger building and we could align it with the beacon, I think it'd be a great mesh. But I'm just really talking about men's sheds just now.
Yeah, because at that point you're talking about interacting with youth in a
Yes.
unsupervised.
No, it'd
Yeah.
be supervised. No. Yeah, that's, no,
Okay.
you have to be careful there.
Yeah, okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Any other discussion on the motion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Mr. Schmidt, we will look at the review the correspondence later on in the meeting. Next presentation comes from Joel, is it Wiebe? Wiebe, Senior Advisor, Community Relations from ALTO. Joel, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate this opportunity to make a delegation. So yes, I'm Joel Wiebe, Senior Advisor, Community Relations with ALTO, and we are working on a high-speed rail line from Toronto to Quebec City. And so I'm going to give you a bit of background on the project and a bit of an overview of where we're at. So there was an announcement back in February by the Prime Minister that Via HFR would become ALTO, a federal crown corporation that's now mandated to deliver high-speed rail that will bring 60% of Canada's population closer together. Next slide. Zeroing in on the specific challenges this project aims to address, ALTO's high-speed rail project will help to improve productivity throughout the corridor and surrounding areas by addressing increased travel costs and fuel, vehicle maintenance, and even infrastructure maintenance, alleviating congestion on major highways and in airports, and bringing disconnected communities closer together through a convenient mode of transportation that reduces greenhouse gas emissions and improves quality of life through an enhanced passenger experience. Next slide. The project will run on 1,000 kilometers of dedicated electrified track. Our service will be fast, reliable, and frequent. We'll be reaching speeds of 300 kilometers an hour, reducing travel times from Toronto all the way to Quebec City. Given the specific design requirements of this technology, we'll need new track dedicated to moving people only, which has the benefit of increased reliability to ensure trains arrive on time and bring you where you need to go when you expect it. We are targeting frequent departures with 20 to 30 trains daily that will enable convenient options and accommodate a flexible travel schedule. Next slide. So you can see here are 7 station locations. We've got Toronto, Peterborough, Ottawa, Laval, Montreal, Trois-Rivières, and Quebec City. What we don't have is what's going to connect all of these. So we are working on the alignment right now to connect the station areas. In the coming months, we'll share corridor concepts, so sort of a broad overview of where we expect, the areas that we're looking at for the train to run. And we'll refine that down to a specific route using technical analysis that includes safety, design, the environment, and social considerations. Next slide. Travel times between city stations will be reduced significantly. So we're looking at going from downtown Toronto to Ottawa in 2 hours or Montreal in 3. We're going to be bringing cities closer together and the workforce as well, as people consider commuting to places that they never would have considered before. Next slide. From an economic perspective, high-speed rail is projected to contribute to a 1.1% increase to Canada's GDP, or about $24 billion annually. Through increased productivity, with cities being brought closer together through higher participation in the workforce and increases in tourism. Next slide. There are several other outcomes from this project. including a meaningful contribution toward reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, with whom ALTO has been engaging for several years now. An increase in rail travel adoption with safer travel between cities. Reduced environmental impact with fewer cars on the road. And an enhanced passenger experience in the corridor means you can multitask or just enjoy the ride while you travel. Next slide. The project will also strengthen Canada's economy by sourcing goods and services right here. We'll need substantial volumes of steel, aluminum, and concrete for our track, trains, buildings, overpasses, and related infrastructure. We'll also need the workforce to build this. This project is expected to create about 50,000 jobs. Next slide. ALTO is not working on this alone. In 2023, Transport Canada launched a rigorous RFP process to identify a project partner. This process closed in February of this year, with the Prime Minister announcing that ALTO will be working with Cadence, which is a consortium of rail infrastructure companies based in Canada and France with expertise in delivering transportation and high-speed rail projects on a global scale. Next slide. So you can see where we are at right now at the beginning of the development phase. Over the next 4 years, we'll identify a corridor and exact alignment, select station locations, complete the regulatory process, acquire the land, and finalize the engineering design. At the end of the development in 4 years, ALTO and Cadence will present the cost and a timeline of a shovel-ready project for federal approval, and then we start construction. Next slide. Being in the development phase means we are engaging with stakeholders, including local organizations and elected officials like yourselves, consulting Indigenous communities and facilitating their participation in the project, and establishing our corridor. Next slide. We are aware that not all communities see themselves in this project, especially those who are not supported with one of the 7 station locations. Recognizing this, ALTO is in the initial stages of creating a community benefits plan that will create sustained, measurable benefits for impacted communities along the project alignment. The early vision for this program includes a focus on economic opportunities through employment and procurement with local businesses. Next slide. I want to share our plans for the coming months. ALTO will launch a comprehensive engagement process. We'll offer several open houses and virtual information sessions, and an online platform that will focus on educating the public on high-speed rail and give participants an opportunity to share insights that help inform the project decision-making process. As the dates are confirmed, we will be sharing the open houses dates with municipalities and the communities along the corridor. Next slide. Underpinning our engagement here at ALTO are principles that ensure that we are open, transparent, and that we reflect the local needs across the corridor through respectful communications with an inclusive and collaborative approach. Next slide. And in conclusion, I want to emphasize that our priority continues to be on building awareness of the project and sharing information with municipalities throughout the corridor. Appreciate this opportunity, and I look forward to any questions that you may have. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. We appreciate your presentation, and I can't speak for all of council, but I'm excited by the project. I feel like it's 30 years that I've been thinking that something like this in Canada should be a reality. So it's good to see that there's a group sinking its teeth into it, and I think there's, given the words coming out of the federal government, real chance that this is going to actually happen. So it's exciting, and it's exciting for a municipality like Brighton, even though we're not on the line, because I think it will increase opportunities along the lakeshore line for things like a possible station here in Brighton for Via or Go or something like that, as we relieve the lakeshore line onto the new ALTO line. But anyway, questions from members of council. Go ahead, Councillor Wielden.
Thank you, Mayor. And through you, the mayor pointed out that it's been a long time coming, a very long time coming. What do you think shifted that finally got this moving?
I appreciate where you're coming from, and I am up by Peterborough Way, and we've been talking about this for a longer than I care to admit. And, you know, it's one of those things where it takes a long time to get a momentum for a project like this. And so VIA got involved around 2016 or 17 with some initial studies to figure out, is this feasible? They were looking for a route for dedicated passenger track. And if you've taken VIA along the lakeshore, you know there are challenges that come with having an arrangement with someone else who owns the lines, right? That you take a back seat to freight, and understandably when CN owns that. And so from there was a long time of just exploratory, can we make this work? Various studies and consultants. And then over the last year and a half or so, it's really picked up steam. And I think that that comes with, you know, vision from Transport Canada, from our federal government, that this is time. And I know 30 years ago would have been great to start this and we'd already be on this train. But the next best time is now. And you know, this, our organization has grown by leaps and bounds over that time. And we've been put on the major project list from the federal government. And it's definitely lit a fire under our organization, and we're moving as quick as we can on that, and given us an extremely ambitious timeline of 4 years to try and get all of this corridor alignment done, all of the work that needs to go into getting this project shovel ready. So it's taken a while to get here. A project of this size, we haven't had, I don't think, an investment in rail like this in quite some time in this country.
Go ahead.
What do you need from us?
Well, today I'm mostly just here to give you an update on the fact that this is coming, because again, this has been talked about for a long time, and show you that this is a real project with real people working on it. And as we move into the new year, we will have open houses and other events, and we want stakeholders to be involved. This is a project that has a lot of positives, but it's also going to have impacts on the communities that it's going through. So for example, there will be no level crossings on this. When trains are going 300 kilometers an hour, we can't have a place where the arm comes down, the lights flash, and we risk people being on the tracks. And so we have a lot of infrastructure to sort out. And so we need input from your community on what are the priorities, what are the things that we need to make sure that we're taking into account as we try and set out where this rail line will go, and what all is involved with that. And so, yeah, we'll have more updates in the new year. And this is just to get it started before we have everything established, so we know what the values of our in the communities are that we are going through. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Wright.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I've had the privilege of riding SNCF in France several times now, and it's quite impressive, and never more so than when a train passes you going in the opposite direction at the same time. It's a little heart-stopping when you're not expecting it. But France is a much smaller country as well. So, you know, and when I'm looking at that picture of that corridor and where it goes into, you're heading up into some of the Canadian Shield, and there's a lot of wild areas through there and animals. And I'm just wondering, is there going to be consideration within that infrastructure to protect the wildlife that you're going to be zipping through?
Absolutely. And just we have quite a broad corridor that we're looking at. Like when you see the line from Peterborough to Ottawa, it's really anywhere in between. And as we go further north, we have more challenges, like you say, with the Canadian Shield. As we go further south, there's more population, more farms, which we also, want to keep in mind the loss of potential farmland. And so, potentially up to the northern end of your township. And so where we go will dictate what wildlife will have an impact on it, and we do want to minimize that impact, and we are working on different ways to have animals still cross our corridor, because it will be heavily fenced, because we don't want them on the track. That's dangerous for everything, right? And so this is one of the significant considerations that goes into where we select this, is what is the impact on the wildlife, water flows, environment, like all of those things have to go into a project like this, because it's such a large infrastructure project to be putting all the way across Eastern Ontario.
I know when I went out west on some of the highways, there was lots of fencing, but then there were also bridges that were built so that animals could cross. Will those kind of considerations take place, or even other passes?
So it's both of those, right? So depending on the geography that we're going through, it may make more sense to have places where they can travel over top the train tracks, and there may be places where, just due to the hills, that our tracks end up being a little bit more elevated, and we can have wildlife going underneath. And our goal is to minimize disruption. And so so we'll have those as much as we can put those through there. And it's definitely a big consideration as we go, because again, and it's not just for the wildlife too. We have a lot of communities, as I've been doing delegations in other places. It's hunting season. I'm quickly reminded about our thousands of acres of crown land and the people who've been hunting on those for generations. And, you know, we don't want to be disrupting herd migrations and those sorts of things through there as well.
Thank you both. Councillor Butwell.
Thank you through you. Kind of just following up on that, we're talking about the section that we're most interested, obviously, is Peterborough to Ottawa.
Of course.
Will it roughly be following, you know, that Highway 7?
So in the new year, when we release the corridor concepts, you'll have a better vision of the areas that we're looking at. So that is under consideration, as is something that goes a little further south.
Okay.
And so the question comes up a fair bit about the old rail beds, because there are old freight rail beds largely most of the way through. They're not continuous. A lot of those have been adopted by snowmobile clubs, ATV clubs, rotaries, and those groups. And while we don't look at freight trains as being particularly nimble, they can turn much tighter than our trains can. So at 300 kilometers an hour, it takes about 7 kilometers for us to make a turn. And so there might be some spots where it makes sense to go along those old alignments, but it's not identified as a large priority for us, because it's just, our trains can't meet the same specs that that was set out when they set out those freight beds. So whether it goes further north along, say, the Highway 7 corridor, or comes a little further south, we're still weighing all those options to see which is best.
Yeah. Follow up. So I remember when the most recent extension of the 407 was in the earlier stages. I mean, it seems like a long time ago now, but
Yeah.
A lot of those farms were sliced in half. You know, just the land is really quite disrupted.
Yeah.
Are we expecting to see that type of swath development where there is extensive expropriation, et cetera, or is the goal to try to minimize that process by traveling, like you talked about, crown land?
Yeah, well, and there's still disruption when it comes to crown land as well. But we want to work with property owners as much as we can. And that again will factor into where are we putting this rail corridor, what is going to be the path with less impact on residents. You know, it will go through a significant amount of land to get from point A to point B. But our goal is to minimize disruption.
Okay, and I suppose with a turn, when you talk about a turn taking 7 kilometers, is that like a 45-degree turn, or even just a slight?
Oh, that's a good question. That's what I keep being told. It takes 7 kilometers. In my mind, I'm thinking like a 45, but I might be wrong on that. Or sorry, a 90 is what I have in my mind. I'll have to clarify with my team.
Someone else might ask that one day.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And you know, for that reason too, we want to make that path as straight as we possibly can.
And I know that anything can be accomplished with the right mindset and the right amount of in the bank account. So
yeah.
Anyway, interesting. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you both. Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. Having just come from a Conservation Authority meeting, do you have wildlife corridor mapping that you're working with? Like, do you know where the animals want to go?
So we have an environmental team. I'm not going to speak for them to say that they have that. I know we were in conversations with the conservation authorities throughout the corridor, but I don't know off the top of my head from the team that I'm on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Anyone else? Thank you, Joel.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. And I will point out that ALTO, the team at ALTO, has been very good about engaging with municipalities through our conferences. So I saw Joel and the team, although it was someone else from the team at the ALTO booth at Ontario East. I know you were at AMO. I anticipate you'll be at Roma in February.
We'll be at Roma. Yeah, I was in a different role at Ontario East before I joined ALTO, but happy to be on this side of things. Thanks so much.
I have a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor Wright. The council received the presentation from Joel Wiebe, Senior Advisor, Community Relations. Of ALTO regarding high-speed rail project Peterborough and Eastern Ontario region. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. Madam Clerk, are you aware of any citizens' comments this evening? Thank you. That brings us to staff reports. The first report is with regard to the establishment of school zones. Director Lennon, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. There are a couple of things I would like to mention to council. First off, the process working with the MTO has been a fluid process. It changes week to week. The MTO has promised to provide regular size over our signs rather than the oversized signs. We haven't received those signs as of yet. And as recently as last week, we found out that the beacons that were provided would not fit the regular size signs. So that's another process we're working through with them to get those replaced. When that happens, we are prepared to move forward with the installation of those signs. Secondly, I'd also like to just add a verbal recommendation to the drafted bylaw. In section 1, where the bullet points are bullet point 2, we mentioned school zones and the effective period. Just for clarity, it make more sense to add to that bullet point that the school zone will be in effect Monday through Friday, September to June of each year, and then still be effective during the periods in Schedule A. Schedule A I'd recommend to amend rather than in effect when flashing to select a time period from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. for all locations. That would cover the various schools. They have different start times and end times, and it would just encompass everything and give us consistent approach.
Thank you for that. I have a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor McCausland, that council authorizes the approval of and execution of a time of day speed limit reduction and school zone bylaw for the establishment of school zones on the municipality of Brighton roads, and that council directs staff to develop a community safety zone policy, to set criteria for establishing community safety zones, to enhance enforcement where pedestrian safety is of special concern, and consolidate the existing community safety zone locations into one bylaw. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. I got to say that I am not a fan of time of day speed limits. The idea that we have some rules sometimes and different rules at different times leads to, I mean, you just use the words consistent approach. And yes, it's nice to have a consistent approach in all locations, but consistent approach from 1 minute to another would also come in handy. I know that when we had the ASC set up there, people would reference the school zone in Trenton as, well, at least there you only have to do it during school hours. Nobody slowed down during school hours. The sign would be flashing, there'd be kids on both sides of the street, and people were still doing 60 through there. So I prefer having a consistent approach where if the speed limit is 40, it's just always 40. So that's my preference. I don't guess that's not an option for us at this point. I'm not sure.
Mr. Lennon.
Through you, so school zones under the Highway Traffic Act, we have the council has the authority to set the speed limit for the school zones. It could be 30 kilometers an hour, 40 kilometers an hour. But our school zones or potential school zones fall within the current approved community safety zones that allow for enforcement with increased fines within those zones. Our current community zones are posted at 40. It's a reduction from the standard 50 kilometers per hour. So to establish a school zone, you'd be looking at dropping the speed in the already posted area 40. So that's why the recommendation is 30. We would have to look at community safety zones versus school zones if we wanted to look at a higher speed limit, I guess.
Just to clarify, I don't want it to be 40. What I want is for it to be the same limit no matter what time of day it is. And so I'm quite happy to have it be 30 all day and all night, or 40 all day and all night. But what I hesitate at is the idea that it's one speed limit, one time of day, and a different speed limit at a different time of day. Ultimately it's like 300 meters of school zone area. People can slow down.
Well, you'd think. That certainly wasn't our experience during ASC. Some people slowed down and others lost their minds when they couldn't. So I do understand your consistency argument and I appreciate it. I think that if we are going to consider a significantly lower speed limit of 30 through the school zones, that I like the approach that staff are recommending to provide a time of day use. I know that the county has introduced this on County Road 26 outside of Spring Valley Public School. It's been effective, somewhat effective anyway. I know the OPP have found it an effective place to stop people. And I know that the school children enjoy the red and blue flashing lights and cheer on the OPP as they stop people in the school zone. So I think this is a good approach. I understand your consistency wish and I get it. But I like the idea of bringing people to 30. We know statistically that at 30 kilometers an hour, if a pedestrian is hit, they have a 90% chance of walking away from that, or at least not dying in the street. And so that at 40, that reduces down to about a 60% chance. So I do like the approach that if there's a lot of people around during the school hours, that we will be reducing traffic to 30 kilometers an hour. And I know that there'll be other things coming to council in terms of other traffic calming measures that staff are looking at in those zones as well. So I get your approach. I'm supportive of the staff report. Go ahead, Councillor Wright.
Living with a retired teacher of 31 years, I have heard the song of the limited daytime hours of reduced speeds, and how much he really liked that in front of Spring Valley and how much he really wished that we could do that in front of Brighton Public and the high school. And this was through the whole ASE. This was the song I was hearing pretty much daily. So I quite like the idea of 30 kilometers an hour school zone. You know, I've been watching the Brighton residents page through this whole ASE thing, and it's just been annoying to say the least, because in my mind, you just go the speed limit and hold your tongue if you can't do it. But this is a nice middle ground. It'll certainly quiet down some of the chatter in my own home about the whole thing. So I quite like the 30 kilometers with the time of day.
Councillor McCausland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, I just wanted to say, kind of backboning on what Councillor Wright said. I heard a lot of, oh, we're just gonna go, if we cut the cameras at nighttime, we're just gonna speed at night. I kind of have this same idea in my head where if it's just from 7:30 to 5, then it's just gonna increase. But I also understand that we did have a lot of backlash when we put the ASEs in place, so this will be another kind of conversation starter for sure. But I'm glad that at least it is, and we're not putting, it's still a safety measure that we're putting in place to help, I guess, keep people safe. So it's nice to see it that we're still keeping the kids in the school zones safe.
Thank you for that. And conversation starter indeed. I fully anticipate that there will be some comments with regard to a 30 kilometers an hour on Elizabeth Street. Councillor Boutwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to my colleagues, and I suppose to Director Linney. We have 7:30 till 5 p.m. So the high school and the public school start at 8:20, I believe, and they go to 2:20 as dismissal for the high school, 2:35, I think, is it somewhere in around there for the public school? How come we're going so late?
I don't know what time is the Smith. I don't know when Smithfield hours are.
Yeah,
Through late start, so they go to 3:40.
Yeah, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
just sorry.
Dr. Lunan.
Oops.
Thank you. Yes, that is correct. The Brighton Public School and the East Northumberland Secondary School do have a earlier start and an earlier finish. But to align with Spring Valley and Smithfield, which their classes, our school isn't out till 3:40, and giving a reasonable time for pedestrians to leave the school and get to where they're going. 5 o'clock was suggested. That aligns with the county's bylaw for the Spring Valley on County Road 26. But if that was just a number that we felt was a safe number, if council wishes to look at that, we're happy to revise.
It would be possible to program them for each individual section of the community. Like we don't have to have a broad-based policy.
That's correct. Like
Okay.
each sign location would be programmed individually, so it could be all individual times.
It's because of the Brighton and ENSS, Brighton Public School and ENSS areas are 8:30 to 2:30-ish. We could do like 8 to 3:30 or 7:30 to 3:30 and then bump that in the Smithfield area. We have no command or control over County Road 26. That's entirely the county's policy, but I'm just, I'm thinking why paint this with a broad brush when we know there are different times? And we'd have to then be conscious of the fact that those times can change. The school board can change the time of day for each school depending on the admin and what they want to do. Anyway, sorry, Councillor Wright.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, would that include enough time for after-school activities, particularly with the high school? Like with after-school tournaments? Like how long do those generally last?
So I found out the other day there are no late buses anymore.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, those days are done. Which broke my heart a little bit. Yeah. Councillor Wheeldon.
To that point, I have a couple of kids in BPS and they walk home when they have after school stuff. So after school stuff is still happening. And without late buses, that just means that there's more kids on the road after school hours. So for that reason, I like 5 o'clock. For the consistency argument, I like 5 o'clock. If the county's running them till 5 o'clock, why not follow suit so that we can tell everybody, hey, slow down until 5 o'clock. If you got to have a time limit on it, at least be consistent so that people get it.
That consistency argument from Councillor Wheeldon one more time. Thank you for that. CAO.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to go back with regards to the change in speed and the flashing beacons, this also was an initiative that was pushed from the province, or encouraged, I should say, by the province. So it wasn't entirely staff that came up with the idea. They provided us with options for signage and beacons, and certainly if you're going to have flashing beacons, you're going to reduce the speed accordingly. So that's why we went to the 40 and then reduced to 30. I too, in conversation with Director Lynn, we talked about the consistency of the timelines and felt it was better municipally wide if we stuck to a consistent time across the board. So certainly up to council if they want to modify that, but I think that the consistency would make it easier to communicate. And, it's not necessarily going to be received well across the board, but this is just one less thing that we would have to address.
Thank you for that, Councillor Botwell.
Thank you again. And just to that end, I don't disagree with the hours in the least, but I know that we shall see the question, why did the early release schools not have the flashing lights or the lower speed limit for only an hour after school versus 2.5 hours after school? So,
right.
I get it. It's much easier to communicate when there is consistency and one messaging that none of our schools are without some sort of safety measure until 5 p.m.
Right. Thank you for that. Any other comment? Go ahead, Councillor Wheeldon.
I would be absolutely remiss if I did not mention the correspondence from one of our most active citizens. Shout out to Brenda, who sent us some great ideas for speed cushions as another speed control option. It's not the same as a speed bump in that there are gaps in between. The narrower wheelbase of passenger vehicles cannot get around them, but apparently the wider wheelbase of a fire truck or ambulance can. So I did tell her that I would mention this, and so here I am mentioning it. I'm sure you've heard from her as well.
And I know that Director Lennon, I believe you responded with we will consider all options with regard to traffic calming measures, and council can anticipate a more fulsome report on that coming forward.
Yes, that's correct. I did respond to Brenda about that and informed her that we would be bringing a traffic calming policy forward that would present traffic calming options and give us like a tool to implement the traffic calming measures, typically starting in a passive approach. But that's part of the transportation master plan approach, is establishing that policy, and Brenda's appreciative of the fact that we are looking at that.
Thank you, Director. And I do just want to say, I really do appreciate that kind of input from the public. I wish we had 100 Brendas. So shout out to Brenda.
Thank you for that. Any other comment or question from members of council on the motion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. That brings us to the report on grants in aid summary. CAO, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just for some context, we received some questions specifically around what some of the applicants had received last year and some questions from council, and thought we'd bring something forward just to lay it out for you for the purpose of your discussion. I know there was some, certainly we've chatted about changing this policy, but there was some discussion about eligibility. We tried to take just a high level overview and take a look at some of them. And certainly there are some that I would say stretch the eligibility, ones that have been supported in the past. So we weren't going to go through with a fine tooth comb. We did identify those that are located within Brighton and those that aren't, because that does seem to be a point that gets discussed quite often. Understanding too, it's hard for us to identify the value to Brighton residents, and it certainly varies across each of those organizations. So we provide this for you for information and for your review this evening and discussion, just to make it a little bit easier for you in making your decisions about grants and aid.
Thank you. CEO, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO, would it be possible to provide this chart that was the last page on your that chart, the Excel spreadsheet, in an Excel spreadsheet, so we can sort it differently if we'd like?
CEO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I am certain somebody with great Excel ability will assist me in doing that.
Okay, thank you.
I know in discussion with the CAO, she was hopeful that we would have a conversation around next steps with regard to the grants and aid. My suggestion is either we go through it line by line tonight and have that discussion, or that we refer it back to staff for a recommendation based on the policy for our consideration at the next meeting. So I leave that to you. Councillor Wheeldon.
I'm open to either of those approaches, but I see faces around the horseshoe saying otherwise, which is fine. I do want to, I guess, once again, I guess remind the public, but also ourselves, that this policy is under review, that we're looking at other options for how to do this in future. I do want to emphasize that by having us determine who gets what, we are politicizing the process of supporting charity in Brighton. And I will also add that my research for the Homelessness Task Force report has shown me that volunteerism and donations have dropped by about half in the last 10 years in Canada writ large. And so it's no wonder we are seeing more requests for larger amounts. And we're seeing even, one of the requests was for money in place of volunteers, because nobody volunteered for Big Brothers and Sisters this year. So I think this is part of a larger conversation about how can we as a municipality support volunteerism and the social fabric of our community. But also I want to light a fire under our residents that if you've got time, you have value to your community. Please step up, because the budget process will not replace your activity.
Thank you for that. And that's certainly, as we mentioned before, certainly what we heard from every single presenter in grants and aid was that every organization is in need of more volunteers. As an anecdote, we had a volunteer job fair at our church, and all the committee chairs, here's what my committee does and here's what our needs are. We did a PowerPoint presentation, and the same 30 people who were doing all the work showed up for the potluck. So it was a good little experiment, but we did not attract the resources that we were looking for to fill additional spots, and maybe to help relieve some of our older volunteers who are feeling like they've been doing this for 50 years and it's time to give it up. And we want to allow people that opportunity as well, if they want to take a step back or take a step into a different role even. So anyway, also, I'm not sure I mentioned this last time. I am in conversation with the United Way, Northumberland United Way, about their volunteer Northumberland concept, and chatting about how it's, to have a volunteer Northumberland concept is great, but unlikely that Port Hopers will come to Brighton to volunteer. So we need to make sure it's a bit more community based, because people tend to volunteer in their community. So Executive Director Van Dyne and I are having those conversations about how to support volunteerism in the local communities across Northumberland. And Alicia's a Brightonian, so that's good news, I think. So Council, how do we want to approach this evening? Councillor Butwell.
I suppose I would like to make a motion to refer this to our next meeting, where we will be discussing anything and everything budget.
CL, did you have a comment? Sorry, I thought you were going for your microphone. Okay. Do you want to refer it to staff for a recommendation, or you just want to refer it to the next meeting?
I would appreciate staff's recommendation, but I don't want it to be the only option that we're given. I would like to still be able to have the line by line discussion.
Well, as with any recommendation coming from staff, we can accept the recommendation or make changes. So that's.
I think that I would like to be able to manipulate this information a bit, and also hear what staff has to say with respect to, does it meet the criteria and the intent of the process that we currently use.
So if we added something like, and refer the matter to staff for further recommendations based on the existing policy. Go ahead, CIO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if council is comfortable, what we can do is we can go through the policy and identify each of the applications. We won't necessarily make any suggestions to reduce the allocated amount. We'll identify areas where they don't necessarily conform to the policy. Again, understanding that some of the wording in the policy is quite broad, and there's certainly things that have been approved in the past that maybe don't specifically align. So if we provide you with a synopsis maybe of each of the applications and areas where they certainly are in line with the policy, and areas where they might deviate partially or entirely from the policy, and then council can make the decision on the dollar amounts.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. And again, through you to the CIO. So if we have a policy, I specifically would like to know if, as per that policy, if they would be excluded or not. We've got one, we should use it. We shouldn't do one-off exceptions to it at all. So it's either going to be like a yes or a no. And it almost seems like you have done so, because if they're not located in Brighton, then they're technically, as per our policy, not eligible. So
even if they're serving Brightonians,
just because there's an absence in the little extra wording doesn't mean that there's consent by omission.
Right. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. So there is a portion of the policy that does indicate the majority of, I'm paraphrasing entirely, but that it's servicing, yes, Brighton residents. So again, even saying yes and no, there might be some variation there that council wants to have a discussion. It's difficult for staff to look at that and say, well, this is 80% all Brighton residents, because we just don't know, and you may not know either, but we can certainly identify, we can put some columns in to give you some base for your discussion. like some of them talk about things like it's not supposed to be, the grant is not supposed to be allocated to salaries. So specifically, the Big Brothers and Sisters application is allocated to salaries. The AULS partially allocated to salaries. So in some of those, we can identify partially allocated to salaries. They're not in the municipality, but they have these other parameters that would fall in line with the grant application. So it'll be a mix, certainly, and we'll try to identify those specific areas. But the policy is rather broad, so there's some discretion on council's part to make that decision, and that's why I say staff isn't going to arbitrarily start to reduce or look at those dollar amounts. I would leave that for council to make a decision based on the information we provide.
Fair enough. Councillor Wright, I have you as the mover of the original motion. Are you okay with the amendments we've made to the motion? And Councillor Butwell as a seconder? Do you want me to read what it would say?
I made a motion to refer.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
we're just going to do that, or we're going to amend the motion. So
There's no motion on the floor.
oh, we
We're
did.
just having a conversation at the moment.
Oh, okay.
I have not read the motion, so what I can do is amend the one that's sitting in front of me for the purpose of the clerk's minutes.
Mhm.
That would say that council refers the grants and aid summary report to staff for further recommendations based on the existing policy.
Yeah, okay.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Well, that brings us to the CAO ongoing report and capital projects update. The CAO, we've read the report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, Mr. Mayor, I do not.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor McCausland, that this council receive the CAO ongoing report, capital projects update. Is there any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. Since we've mentioned it a few times tonight, the land banking initiative is on my mind. Every time I see Director Walsh, he says he's going to put that out for RFP. And I haven't heard if it actually did go, and if so, when is it coming back?
Director Walsh.
Through Mayor to Council, the RFP went out a week ago last Friday. And it's on bids and tenders, which is our medium for doing that. And we're getting a lot of questions. A couple of premier consulting firms are asking for a bit of more time, and CIO and myself have had a bit of an email exchange on that today. And so we're of the tendency of mind to maybe give them a little bit more time, because it's going to mean a lot of different subcontractors and associates that they have to bring together. And it takes time to make those arrangements. So we're just going to reply to those comments likely tomorrow, and to keep things moving along. But getting a lot of good positive attention, and thank you to everyone who's reposted it on their LinkedIn site. Thank you.
Thank you for that. When is the current due date for the RFP?
We go through two stages. One is to qualify a short list of parties qualified. They'll attend before council. That was originally scheduled for January 26th council session. Forgot that, the last council session in January. But if we bump up the dates based on the request of others, then that would push it into February. So it'll be the February date that you probably see the qualified consultants here, and we can pepper them with questions about their vision for the property and their past experience, and see alignment of minds, and then we'll go and from that short list resulting from our conversations with council, we'll then do an actual detailed RFP, which will be the work details, project schedule, and costing.
Thank you for that. Anything further on the CAO ongoing report? Go ahead, Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. I meant to ask you this earlier, but since it's mentioned in this report as well, I will ask it here. You brought the budget to council November 3rd. That's what's noted here.
No, it was November 17th
Okay.
that we
That
actually
makes more
brought it.
sense.
Yeah.
I have been reminded that under the new rules, 30 days after you introduce it, it is deemed passed.
Yes.
So just framing in my mind, next meeting, that is it. Is
Well,
that?
We have 2 days after that meeting, but I think staff intend to bring a budget. No, we don't have to bring the budget bylaw until after that 30-day period, right? Yeah, I want you to chime in here. That's why I'm looking at you.
Mr. Mayor. Essentially how we set up the schedule indicated that the December 15th date would be the first opportunity to adopt the budget. So we had the session for amendments specifically. There was no specific amendments to the budget. We had the $50,000 allocated pending grant funding. The other item, I suppose, in the budget right now that is over budget is your grants and aid. So that will be an allocation, whatever council decides to do. If you happen to approve them all, we would have to increase it by that 31,000 or whatever that dollar figure was. Assuming if you reduce it, we would leave the full amount of the 1.5%. So you'd have a buffer if there was some one-offs that came in after. So really, those are the only two items that were of discussion. So we would expect that December 15th, the budget could be passed, even with an amendment, as long as it was something that our treasurer could essentially manage the numbers and report back to council. We still could move forward on December 15th.
Thank you, CAO. I just wanted to make sure I had it straight.
And thank you both for that. Anything further on the CAO ongoing report? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? That motion is carried. I will note that Councillor McCausland left the chamber at 7:34 p.m. and returned at 7:36 p.m. And I will note that Councillor Rowley has left the Zoom call at 7:40 p.m. We have no notices of motions or motions listed. It brings us to unfinished business, which is the amendment, 12.1 amendment to the mayor's budget, resolution number SPC 2025-35. I remember saying we should bring this forward on unfinished business. Was that just so we could have further discussion on potential amendments? See, do you remember why we were doing this? Because that was carried.
Yes, I
Yeah.
believe you had asked just to have an item there, just in
Okay.
case there was any further discussion or any further amendments, council
Okay.
would have the opportunity here.
So council, under unfinished business, the budget 2026 budget, are there any other amendments you wish to propose at this point? Go ahead.
I did have the amendment to pull at least the cemeteries out of the grants and aid. I would be happy to see that money come off the grants and aid and just go into budget. And that way they don't have to come forward every year, do their song and dance. It's just, here's your money, keep doing what you're doing, yay.
I have declared a conflict of interest with regard to one of the cemeteries, so I'm going to turn the floor over to Councillor Wheeldon. And Councillor Wheeldon, I've started to write a motion, but I probably shouldn't do that either. So you've got Councillor Wright as the mover and the word that. That's all you get.
Thank you, Mayor. Carry on, and I'll start writing this motion.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, did I have one? I don't have one with where it was just the cemeteries.
Councillor Wheeldon, could I just make a suggestion? It's through you to Councillor Wright, as opposed to pulling it out of the budget at this stage, could we provide direction to staff to pull it out when we come back with the revised grants and aid policy?
Yes.
Just the budget's already out, so instead of confusing people by pulling it out, and we have a policy that says grants and aid has to be 1.5%, so then we're deviating from our own policy. So if we could just have staff direction to specifically remove the cemeteries when we do come back with a new grant and aid process, we'll ensure that we do that, and we'll set a budget item specifically so they don't have to come back next year.
Okay, yeah,
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
fine.
thank you.
So never mind.
So that fixes it moving forward.
Yeah.
But not for this year.
Right.
Was there something you wanted to do for this year?
Well, I mean, they're likely going to be covered by our process here for this year anyways. It's just, I don't want to see them have to come back next year and the year after that. So I'm fine with leaving it as is for this year. They've already done their stuff.
Then I will turn the floor back to Mayor Ostrander.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. That was much easier than we thought it might be. Thank you. Brings us to bylaws. Sorry, are there any further amendments? I'll give another opportunity. No motion. No. Staff have already been directed to review and come back with a new policy for council. And I think they've got the message with regard to both healthcare items and cemeteries.
Yeah, really.
Brings us to bylaws. This is the bylaw with regard to school zones. It's moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Butwell, that council gives the bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to designate a part of a municipal road as school zones as amended. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Are there any opposed? The motion is carried. Brings us to reports, minutes of advisory committees of council and review teams. The first is a recommendation from the Accessibility Advisory Committee. It's moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Butwell, that council support the recommendation from the Accessibility Advisory Committee regarding International Day of Persons with Disabilities and highlighting inclusive businesses, and that council proclaim December 3rd, 2025 as International Day of Persons with Disabilities and direct staff to research and highlight businesses that provide inclusive services. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. The next is the minutes from the Accessibility Advisory Committee. It's moved by, nope. I will need a mover. That council received the following committee meeting minutes as presented. Accessibility Advisory Committee, September 11th, 2025. Councillor Wright, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And moving into reports and minutes of statutory committees, boards, and external agencies. Sorry, I'm going to go back because I should have given Councillor Wielden or Wright the opportunity to speak to those minutes. Is there anything you wish to speak to on those accessibility minutes?
I think the motion was the highlight.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So that brings us to, again, external boards and agencies. It's the Brighton Public Library Board. Councillor McCausland as our representative. Do you have anything to note on this? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I just wanted to, I guess I should have said this in the announcements, but the library will be closed from December 23rd to January 2nd this year for their holidays for Christmas and such.
Thank you for that information. I have a motion moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor McCausland, that council receive the October 22nd, 2025 Brighton Public Library Board meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. And we move to correspondence, direction items, endorsements, communications, petitions. The first piece of correspondence comes from Mr. Schmidt regarding a men's shed. It's moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The council refer to staff the request from Rene Schmidt Men's Shed to consider the future repurposing of an unused larger building, garage, or other space to become a Brighton men's shed. Is there any discussion? Councillor McCausland.
Just a comment. Thank you. I just wanted to say that I think this is a great initiative, I guess, and everyone feels better if they have a purpose in life.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Councillor Wright?
Just wanted to say we had circled refer, but it's definitely a support and refer because I think it's a fabulous idea as well.
Well, you are the mover, so there you go. Councillor Butwell is the seconder. You're okay with that minor amendment?
Absolutely.
There you go. So it now says that council support and refer, etc. Any further discussion? Those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And correspondence from the Township of McGarry with regard to GST, HST relief for first-time homebuyers. It's moved by Councillor Butwell, seconded by Councillor Wright, that council receive or support the resolution from the Township of McGarry regarding GST, HST relief for first-time homebuyers. Is this a, Councillor Butwell is the mover, are we supporting or receiving?
Well, in reading it, I mean, of course, we're receiving support. I have no problem supporting this. I'm baffled at the price of their homes there. 961,000, I think it was, something like that, for a first-time home buyer. Just, oh, and I think we have problems.
Councillor Wright is the seconder. Are you okay with that support? Any further discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Wielden.
Thank you, Mayor. There have been campaigns to try and get the federal and provincial governments to eliminate HST on all new homes, which would put them on an even playing field with resale homes, which could have a significant impact on the market. And for context, the cost of DCs, even in the municipalities with the highest DCs, is less than half of the cost of HST. And so for all the flack that municipalities have been taking for the cost of homes, HST is a much bigger impediment to the sale of new homes, of which there are tens of thousands sitting empty in Ontario right now because nobody can afford to buy them.
Thank you for that. Would you like to see an amendment to this motion that says, and further, that municipality of Brighton supports the removal of HST from all new homes? Councillor Butwell is the mover. Would you be okay with a friendly amendment?
Yeah, I'd be fine with the friendly amendment. I frankly don't think that removing the full amount is going to make a lick of difference. The price of new homes is just astronomical to begin with. And the builders still have to pay HST on everything that they're buying to build the home, and they get the rebate back themselves. So friendly amendment, sure. Pie in the sky.
As a seconder, before I keep writing. Okay, so we have circled support, and we have written, and further, that Brighton Council supports removing GST, HST from all new home purchases. Any further discussion? Those in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. We move on to the Brian Todd request for banners. It's moved by, the motion reads that council support the request from the Brian Todd Memorial Community Fund to hang with assistance of municipal staff banners bearing local student art on poles in the downtown core of Brighton and Smithfield. Is there a mover? Councillor McCausland. And it's seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. Is there anything further to discuss? Go ahead, Councillor Wielden.
Thank you, Mayor. Absolutely support. Love the Brian Todd Memorial Community Fund. Love the banners. I do recall earlier this year there was some confusion and conflict about who has access to using the banners at all. Because at one point the Justice, Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Committee wanted to use a few, and that was cause of some conflict. And I was just hoping to have some clarity. If we support this, are we saying that they get all of the banners all of the time? And if so, is there any way for us to maybe make room for other banners in the community as well?
This motion reads that we are supporting the hanging of banners with assistance from municipal staff. I don't see it saying anything about exclusive use. But we know what assumptions can be made. So, Councillor Butwell.
If I'm not incorrect here. I think the motion or the talked about permission and assistance from municipal staff in the communication. 4 lines from the bottom, 5 lines. We're asking council for permission and assistance from municipal staff to help place the banners on poles. And it was the Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Committee wanting to put up flags or banners right through the downtown core for Pride Month. And we had conversations about ownership of the poles, ownership of the brackets, ownership of the banners, and we were told we would evaluate that for this year. So I'm not in favor of allowing exclusive use of those or exclusive placement of banners.
Perhaps we should refer this to staff if we are waiting on a
Yeah, we will.
policy change or some advice from staff. Perhaps it would be best to refer this to get that report.
I don't know if we have a policy to begin with, so perhaps we need to have one so that we can follow it.
Indeed. The motion I've drafted reads that council refers the Brian Todd Memorial Community Fund request to staff for a recommendation on pole banner bracket use / / / Is there a mover? It's moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon. Is there any discussion? Go ahead.
In addition to that, could we actually get a policy on that?
That might be part of the recommendation, so.
That they write a policy or that they
Staff will provide a recommendation, and one of the recommendations might be that they will be
going forward? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Anything further? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And we come to FYI correspondence, and the only item is the Northumberland County updates, November 24th to December 5th. It's moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The council received the updates from Northumberland County, November 24th to December 5th, 2025 as information. Is there any discussion? Go ahead.
A question, I guess, since I know that the warming room has already opened, do you have any updates about how it's going?
I only know Friday's update. On Friday, 17 people used the warming room, and there were no report, nothing to report. Nothing bad, nothing good, nothing. People in, people out. That was good. Yes, it's a nothing report is always a good report. Anything further? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Brings us to question period. Is there anyone in the gallery with the question that with anything that appeared on tonight's agenda? No, it's good to hear. We have no closed session this evening, which brings us to our confirmatory bylaw, which reads that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton Council meeting held on December 1st, 2025. Is there a mover? Councillor Wright. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. And a motion that the December 1st, 2025 council meeting adjourn at 7:58 p.m. Is there a mover? Councillor Butwell. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson. All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion's carried. May we be resolute in our duty to protect local and Canadian values, and may God save the King.